Hello, I'm Ed Needham, editor of the fabulous literary magazine Strong Words, and this is my podcast, The 5 Rules of Writing. In each episode, I speak to a most excellent writer in a particular genre about how they do it. And if you'd like to know more about Strong Words, and specifically how to subscribe, go to www.strong-words.co.uk and you'll be whisked straight to the website.
Hello and welcome to the 5 Rules of Writing, brought to you by Strong Words magazine. Now, this is a podcast where I talk to writers about the 5 things they know to be true in writing whatever it is that they write for a living. So whether they spend their days writing the great American novel or parking tickets, there are some aspects of their work that are absolutely non-negotiable. Now, today I'm delighted to welcome, in something of a diversion from our conventional guest pool, a songwriter. He's also a lyricist and musician who has been in the music business since the 60s and whose name can be found on some huge hits. He was barely off the telly in the first half of the 70s as the guitarist with Mud, and since then his name has appeared in the credits of songs that are always being played somewhere around the world, such as Spiller's Groove Jet and Kylie's Can't Get You Out of My Head. So I'm very excited to welcome a man who is going to share his 5 rules of writing a chart topper, Rob Davis. Hello, Rob.
Hi,
Thank you for joining me. How long have you been earning a living in the music business, Rob?
Oh, as you said, since the 60s, yeah. I mean, it was better times for gigging and stuff in the 70s. Now bands really suffer, but we were earning a living before we even made it, you know.
Mm-hmm. And who would you have been listening to when you started out?
Wow, so very first, it would have been Shadows, Dwayne Eddy, people like that, and then merged into different people in the 70s, yeah.
And when you started, songwriter and performer were still 2 very different professions, weren't they?
Definitely.
I mean, when were you first aware of bands writing their own songs? And did you think, oh, yeah, I could do that?
Very early on, I was aware of it, and I just did it as a sort of a hobby. I always had a tape recorder. I used to have to multi-track in a different way in those days in the 60s. It's really tough to get something to sound good. But, yeah, I was very aware earlier on, like late teens, I'd say.
And do you remember the first time you sort of realised, yes, this is allowed now? It's permitted for people for performers to write their own music.
Yeah. I mean, I think with more of me, it was an enjoyment thing as well. I sort of love writing and I love the technical side of recording it as well. So I think I got into the whole bit. But I was more in love with the guitar initially before songwriting, you know.
Right. And were you a sort of student of music? Did you kind of study songwriting?
I didn't study songwriting, but I did have sort of things like classical guitar lessons when I was very young. So I had sort of various insights, you know.
Mm-hmm. And are you still very much a full-timer? Are you in the studio every day?
Yeah.
A few gigs when you can, or do you sort of wait for inspiration to strike?
No, I'm in studio all the time because I produce a little bit as well. So it's a long operation nowadays when you're doing it all yourself, writing and producing. But I do co-write with a lot of people. But no, all the time, even though it's not so profitable nowadays with the Spotify thing going on and all that for songwriters, but it's still good openings, you know.
And where do we find your beautiful studio?
Where I am now, behind me.
And where is that, Rob? Where are you?
In Bromley.
Okay.
In Bromley, London, yeah.
And is your studio time, is that focused on sort of trying to sort of mine a new hit? Is it sort of hit centric, or is it a much broader sort of approach to music?
I do different things. I mean, it is there because I get stuff released on labels, on small labels, and I'm always aware of getting something that's strong, a little bit left to centre, and trying to get that special magic going. Yes, always.
And what sort of, in brief, was the sort of journey of appearing in one of the most recognisable glam bands of the day to writing massive dance hits? You know, how did you find your way from one to the other?
I think coming out of the rock thing, late 70s, I started getting into more sort of black music and funk, and I went on to do an album with a guy called Oliver Cheatham in the 80s, who was very sort of funky, sort of black dance music, and moved on from there. And I met Paul Oakenfold later on, and he said, like, dance music's going to be massive with songs on it, and I was probably one of the first people writing top lines over dance tracks, through meeting Oakenfold,
From Strong Words magazine, these are the 5 rules of writing.
So let's get on to your rules, Rob. So these are, by the end of this, no one will have any excuse not to be able to write a huge hit. But anyway, your first rule, you say the song idea and lyric needs to be left of centre, nothing too obvious. What do you mean by that exactly?
It's my little personal thing, really. Not only for success, but for credibility, I think, as well. I've just got this thing about not having an obvious lyric that's been done before, and trying to keep away from love and all that, because there's been so many songs, with the same love title. I just think to get a lyric that's slightly unusual is part of my thing, really.
And where might you look for such a thing?
I mean, I keep in my phone. If I go a trip to town, I'll look through the papers. I'll even stop at Smith's bookstore and look for song titles. I just keep zillions and zillions of ideas, magazines. I mean, there's famous quotes from the Bee Gees. They used to buy all the daily papers and stick them all around them, and they stick in a circle, and they just nick subtitles and stuff like that.
And where does a song sort of begin to be written for you then? Does it begin with that fragment of lyric, or what is the initial fragment?
It's all different. Every time I write a tune, if I know I'm going to write a dance tune, and there's a project going, which there always is, I probably start with a backing track, with a track, but I'll be loose about that. I'll be change the chords if need be, and I'll just run some vocal ideas over the track. But I will refer to those lyrics again. Just look for a great title.
Okay. And are there songwriters who you have tried to emulate?
God, I mean, I love people like Steely Dan from the 70s. They were such great writers, and the music was amazing, incredible chords and incredible lyrics. So I'm always looking for the two,
Mm-hmm. And did anyone actually at any point sit you down and teach you how to do it? Or is it
I think
on the job?
I think the learning part is listening to the great records. I really do. Song structures, the great, and with the song structures, I do this this song thing where I mentor writers, and I always say that there's no rules. You don't have to do verse, bridge, chorus. Can't get you out of my head to prove that, because it wasn't that. It was completely different.
Mm-hmm. And do you spend a lot of time then sort of dismantling songs? You get your old Steely Dan records out and work out just how they did it.
Yeah, well, sometimes, especially if you, with those sort of things, the chords are like incredible. So that's like an education in itself. Looking at chord sequence and stuff.
Mm-hmm. I mean, do you feel you sort of might forget something that feels magical? This music is so ephemeral, isn't it? So hard to sort of grasp. Do you worry something might just float through your head and float right out again? Yeah,
I do. In fact, I was in Ibiza last week, and there was a couple of lines came into my head, and I thought, and I didn't have a pen, didn't have my phone handy. And I must remember this, and I've forgotten when I got home. Really mad, but. Yeah.
And is Kylie's "Can't Get You Out of My Head"? Is that the biggest song you've been part of? What happened there to make it so huge, do you think?
Well, it was a writing day with me and Kathy, and I'd never met her up until this weekend, and we did 2 days together.
This is Kathy Fisher.
Kathy Dennis, yeah.
Kathy Dennis, sorry.
Yeah. And I'd never met her. Some Fuller put us together at the time, and we did one day. We got one song, and that we did that on the second day. I think I just had a drum loop to start with, and I had an acoustic guitar in my old studio that was in Epsom in Surrey, and she came up with she said, I've got this I Just Can't Get You Out of My Head hook. She started singing it over these D minors to A minors that I was playing, and it was one of these songs where we wrote the track and the structure and the whole thing as we moved along over about 5 hours, and we had the whole thing in 7 hours, the demo produced.
And did you know at the time that this is huge?
It felt good, but I didn't know it's going to be that huge. No.
And was it written with Kylie in mind?
No, I mean it was Simon Fuller sort of heard it and shopped it to a couple of people, including Sophia Ellis-Bextor, who I know very well, and she dumped it, and S Club 7 dumped it, And I sent a cassette at the time to Jamie, who's Kylie's A&R, and he flipped and said, "She's coming down to you." And I went, "What?"
She's on the way. Don't give it to anyone else.
Yeah.
And did Sophie Ellis-Bextor regret?
Yeah, we still
passed
talk
on it.
about it. Yeah, she did. Yeah.
And what kind of difference does writing such a thing make to your life? Is that kind of new car, new house, new chateau,
Yeah,
new plane?
better studio, better equipment. Yeah, all that. Yeah, definitely moved you definitely up.
Okay. Now then, your second rule, Rob, you say being a musician as well as a top liner, I try to find chord progressions which feel special. Now, what is a top liner exactly?
A top liner is a lot of girls are top liners. They sing and they write the vocal and the lyric. Maybe they write it over to a famous DJ's backing track or something. But again, there's no rules. Maybe some people just write lyrics. But if you're a singer and you're a top liner, it's great because you can do a vocal at home and send it off to a producer.
And do you consider yourself more of a songwriter or a lyricist?
I try to do everything. I don't know why, because I've been put into various camps over the years, where I've had to go at all different things,
Uh-huh.
And I think you become really choosy in every way once you do it all,
Right. And trying to find chord progressions which feel special, that feels a bit ambitious. There's a quote, I think, from Noel Gallagher. He says there's only 12 notes and there's only 36 chords. Where does originality come from?
Well, I think I again can't get it on my head. It's got a diminished chord in it, and no dance tune or pop dance tunes normally have that sort of chord. So if you find something unusual, I think I'm trying to think. There was an old songwriter who used to say, "Look for that special change,"
And what effect would a diminished chord have on a song? What sort of mood does that create that's inappropriate for the dance
Slightly
floor?
intense thing. It just jacks it all up a bit into a different direction. It's really weird on these songwriting things that people analyze all this, but I just don't think there's any rules. You just got to try things and see how they feel.
Right. So it's more of a numbers game then. Just keep producing and see if there's something in there.
Yeah. Now the technology is so great. I mean, you can get a song and you can chop a verse into a different place, or you can put a bridge in front of the verse. I had one publisher used to say, get a great chorus and make that your verse, and then get a chorus that's better, But again, it's just to keep in mind,
And I mean, one of the most frustrating things, I think, for anyone who's hit the jackpot in what they do, whether that's sort of having a hit single or a hit novel or winning a big sporting prize, is that having done it once, you're none the wiser as to how to do it again, right?
Oh, yeah. And circumstances change as you get older and you learn different things. And yeah, it is a funny one. Yeah, you hit that magic thing and get it. And sometimes it's the surrounding circumstances, getting it to the right person and the right act.
Does this absolutely drive you nuts? That it's like you've got to the top of the mountain and they don't give you a map to do it again, or is that not your goal? You've just got to keep pushing.
I just love the doing of it anyway. So I'm sort of in a good place really. But I am sort of thinking of that and reaching for that. It's even harder nowadays to do because there's millions and millions of writers.
Oh, right, of course. Yeah, I mean, it must be tempting to try and copy the formula, no? Or are you aware of the pitfalls of that?
Yeah, I often hear a great record on the radio. I think this is amazing. I've got to put this up in the studio and
nick it.
Yeah, so PWL Waterman used to do that. He used to take all the old soul records and listen to the changes and rip them off. Everybody does it.
I mean, that is sort of a famous sort of maxim of all creativity, isn't it? If I can't quite remember what the saying is, but if good artists steal is essentially the the heart of it. Now, the rule 3, you say on the vocals, don't be afraid to leave spaces. Also, plenty of highs and lows. Make sure different sections work from verse to bridge to chorus. Now, I'm a bit surprised about this, that you say, it's a lyricist talking about leaving spaces for the vocals, because I would have thought lyricists would be tempted to fill every available space.
Yeah, this is something we were talking about again on this songwriting thing that I do. So sometimes, especially nowadays, maybe you've got an instrumental with a great riff around it on a chorus. Sometimes a little simple vocal in the spaces can be magical. Again, it's that searching for the magic. But yeah, some records really work with a rappy sort of vocal fast. But sometimes it can be magical just to leave a hole.
And do you write lyrics with particular singers in mind?
Not really. I think I just try to get something that's strong all the time. Just think of that.
Mm-hmm. I mean, and sort of phraseology is such an important skill as well, isn't it? Of the singer, thinking of people like, sort of Frank Sinatra, somebody who felt like he just had all the time in the world with his singing, whereas someone like Mick Jagger sort of snapped every word off the second he was done with it. Do you sort of build that in as a lyricist, or is it sort of hand it over, let the
on a Sinatra thing? Every time I hear a new singer do a Sinatra song, I think, why have you done this? It's never going to be as good as the original. See, the production's never as good, the vocal's never as good. It's like, leave it where it was because it was magical, Like,
and are there singers who do things with lyrics today that kind of make you think, wow, how did they get so much out of so few words?
Again, one of my points on those songwriting things is getting a great vocalist on your song, because maybe they can twist the line around and think, wow, I could never sing it like that.
And who are your other sort of greats? You mentioned Frank Sinatra, but who else do you sort of consider just a absolute master with a lyric, the way in which they treat it?
I think Diane Warren's pretty incredible. She's always got some beautiful change in there. In fact, Unbreak My Heart has got an incredible chord change, and the Unbreak My Heart line is brilliant. It's just sort of a reversal thing,
Okay. Now, number 4, you kind of mentioned this already, but let's talk about this a bit more. You say, I keep a phone and book full of lyrical ideas. Yeah. Keep adding to it. Do you find that, this is the sort of school of lyricists, you all do this, or is this unique to you?
No, I think this is unique to me, but I think a lot of people, if another singer comes to me, I say, have you got anything, and then maybe they'll get a little book out and they've got some lyrics they've written down. I like someone to have loads of that, to bring to the table, really, and to be able to, if we've got a nice vibe going on, to be able to change that lyric to something else, and maybe look in your phone for a better line or something that would be more magical,
Mm-hmm. I mean, one of the problems I find with keeping notes, is I also keep little notebooks and write things down, is you still got to find things in the notebook, right? If you've got all this great volume of lyrics, how do you pick the right one from this mass that you've...
Well, in my phone, I've got a way of finding the latest stuff, which I'm probably more excited about. And if I'm struggling to with one of those lines on the latest stuff, I'll zip through it and see if there's anything else,
And what makes a great lyric for you? You mentioned things which are slightly, left of centre. But what lyric would you aspire to sort of produce with a lyric?
Or like I just said, that Unbreak My Heart is, instead of saying don't break my heart, unbreak it. It's just like clever ways of doing things, and something unusual, like Steely Dan has a song called Kid Charlemagne, and I went, what's that about? But you hear the song, go, wow, it's fucking amazing lyric, and it's an amazing story,
Why didn't you write more songs for Mud, Rob? I know you did a bit with them, but a lot of the hits were by the producers, weren't they?
Yeah, it was Chin and Chapman at the time. They did all your Tiger Feets and stuff, but the bass player and I did a thing called Lucy, which was quite a big record, Take It Down, which was more of a movement into a funky sort of vibe, which sort of helped my career for now.
So were you trying to write for them and get in, push back? Was it still this slight sort of overlap between, that the band wasn't expected to write songs?
Well, initially, when we met Chin and Chapman, it was like, get you in the studio. We've got this Tiger Feet, we've got these other songs. Do them, and we did them really quick, and also we were earning on the road, and we actually put a whole album together of covers for the first Mud Rock album, because it was just a quickness thing, and it seemed to work, and I've always, and I wrote the B-sides, but I had to share them with the band on that stuff, so I was still doing it, and eventually we got our own singles.
Okay. I mean, with that band, were you expecting, were you aiming to be huge, or was it just a way of making money at the time?
It was a long story. We were on the road, doing lots of gigs, and with Mud to earn money. We'd do colleges, we'd do social clubs, we'd do cabaret, anything, and we had a big following up north. And Mickey Mouse saw us live, and he put Chin Chapman on to us, and it was just because we had this following, and we had a really good live act. We had an amazing front man, used to muck around, and they just saw it as like a big thing to do, you know.
Mm-hmm. Because a lot of the things with Mud were very. I mean, I've been watching the old sort of films from Top of the Pops and whatever else comes up on YouTube, and they're very choreographed, aren't they? All your performances, every step was, every element of the song was choreographed. Where did that come from?
It came from playing a club in Nottingham, and we saw all these guys doing that dance thing.
Right.
And they were actually. It was like mad, this club. They were actually drinking pints and then throwing them into the other one's mouth while they were doing that. It's like,
so this is the dance with kind of their sort of thumbs in the waistband, right? And doing it with the elbows out.
Yeah, and that was our roadies on stage with us as well doing that. So, yeah.
And I have to ask you about the costumes as well, because that was the rest of the band kind of wore sort of basic teddy boy suits, right?
Yeah,
draped jackets, and whereas you, even though you're always color coordinated, wore these very sort of flowing, quite feminine costumes with these huge sort of chandelier earrings as well. Even at the height of glam, this was quite
mad.
Wardrobe. Where did that come from, Rob?
When we we went to a place called Carnaby Cabin in Carnaby Street, and this guy Colin Wilde made the drapes and stuff for the guys, and he said, "That doesn't suit you," to me, and he said, "I'm going to make you something different." And then it got worse and worse and more outrageous by each costume and each record, you know. Yeah.
Right. And now, okay, so number 5, you say this is your 5th rule: get the best possible production on your song before playing to industry people. Now, this made me think, what would I do if I, say, had a dream in which I was in the most debauched nightclub and there's a singer performing a song which I just know has got kind of #1 record in 56 countries written all over it. Mm-hmm. How would I give myself the best chance to cash in on this piece of music that I've just imagined?
Well, I think you'd have to, if you're not an experienced producer, you'd have to find someone who can do it for you and just keep nagging them and saying, let's make this record. And if the singer's great as well, use the singer.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Do you get people still sort of ringing record companies and singing something down the phone to them, or
not anymore? No, that's complete. I mean, even more so nowadays because the technology is so amazing. You can have incredible gear in your bedroom and you can make it sound great, But the record company expects that to be there, no demos. It has to completely blow them away.
Okay, you mentioned that there's an awful lot. There's more competition now than ever before, right? The technology has enabled pretty much anybody to have a go if they want. How do you stand out in that immensely crowded market?
I hope, because I've got the musical experience as well, that I can do something different with it. I mean, I think a lot of kids now probably don't play so much. I mean, some can, probably piano geniuses and stuff, but some of them maybe chordally don't know enough. And I hear that on dance records. So sometimes there's one chord going through the whole thing, and you think, "Oh, this could be a bit more interesting," And
is it a great fear that someone is going to steal your idea? Is that still something?
Sometimes it can be, yeah. So, I mean, in the old days, you used to have to send your song off to PRS and put it in a sealed envelope. But nowadays, I think you have to play that by ear. And if something's on the radio and you think it's been nicked, then you've got to go to the publishers with it and stuff.
And does that take up a lot of your time then?
It would, yeah. Because so much is stolen nowadays and sampled. It's like a mad world out there, because a lot of rap stuff just steal old backing tracks, and of course the person who's written like they're Fatback Band. I think they're making millions just from rap samples. It's a funny old scene out there.
And are you constantly sort of monitoring the theft of your back catalogue? Is that something you become aware of?
Yeah, especially the Kylie one. I mean, I've noticed the track gets stolen quite a lot, the whole vibe of the track, but I don't think you can get done for a backing track, really. They'd have to be a big bit, yeah.
And how much, what happens? You go to these people, you say you've nicked that, they say guilty, and what happens? Is money exchanged, or do they just agree not to do it again?
Well, here's one instant. I've got a song called Tox Miracle that was number one. There's been the odd producer and stuff that are remade it, the song, and put their name on the publishing, and I just go to, because Universal own that. I've just gone to them a couple of times, and they've just sent them a message saying you're not getting any publishing on this, and of course they can control that, the publisher. So. Oh
right, okay. So you divert the money at source, then it comes to you without having to either strip to the waist and fight them in the streets, or hand over huge sums of money to lawyers.
Yeah, that goes on. I think court cases still go on a lot nowadays.
And you've been at this for almost as long as the music industry has existed, Rob. Where do you still get your motivation from?
Again, as I said earlier, hearing new records. I mean, I don't like everything, but I hear the odd thing. I think it's just amazing. I find that inspiring. In fact, my son's always saying, "Oh, listen to this on SoundCloud," and vice versa. We're always sending this out of the new things that are out there. It's exciting.
And what have you heard most recently that's made you kind of think, I'm really glad I'm still working in this business?
There's an act called Griff. She's a girl. I think she got a Brit. Maybe she got a Brit award. She's got a song called Black Hole. I think that's probably one of the best things I've heard this year. Really nice.
And do you still enjoy being part of the music industry? I mean, nobody's met anyone over the last year or so, but do you still get a thrill from, performing, being, having, the laminate that entitles you to go wherever you feel like, hanging out with people you admire, this kind of thing? Or are you just locked in your studio now? You're more interested in the artistry of it?
Well, I do love, because I'm a guitar player, I miss playing live. Just even little gigs just for a laugh, down the pub. We're not even allowed to do that at the moment. So, and the last few years we've done a few mug gigs abroad and stuff, which I've enjoyed. Just going back, just me and the original bass player. But I do miss that. But I do miss like meeting people in the social side of the business. Yeah.
And do you still see many people from the sort of glam glory days?
A few, yeah. A few. I was in touch with my old bass player and a few well-known faces.
And will you be? Have you got any gigs planned? Are you returning to?
I reckon if we're allowed to next year, I think we'll probably do a few mud things. Yeah.
Brilliant. Well, best of luck, Rob. Thank you so much for talking to me. It's been a real pleasure, and I've really enjoyed it.
From Strong Words magazine, these are the 5 rules of writing.